I didn't think so. I didn't think so. But we.
Like to call to order the Trotwood-Madison City School District Board Retreat Special Meeting, April 4th, 2022, here at our central office location. Ms. Allen, will you call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Andrews?
Yes.
Mrs. Jeter Freeman?
Yes.
Ms. Cherry?
Yes.
And Ms. Moore?
Yes, the meeting has been called to order. Please join us in a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I now need a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
So moved.
It's been properly moved in second. Ms. Allen, will you please call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Andrews?
Yes.
Mrs. Jeter Freeman?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mrs. Cherry?
Yes.
And Ms. Moore?
Yes, the agenda has been adopted. We're going to move right into item 2, which is a recap of the last retreat's findings. And before we get started, at the last retreat, we promised to get you out in 2 hours. We're going to hold to that again today. There's a lot of information on the agenda, but I think working collectively, we can get through it. Mr. Andrews, can you please be the timekeeper, maybe 30 minutes before, and then another 15 minutes, and that way we'll know where we are, like at 7 o'clock, and then maybe 7:15.
Oh, yes.
And that way, if there's things that need to move along,
Look,
can
we
get
have
those
a-
things moved along. Is that okay?
Certainly, this is a big game this evening.
Oh, okay, well,
I want to get my pizza ready.
who knows, we might finish early.
Here we go.
Okay. Okay, so, given that, we'll be real mindful. We're going to start with the summary of findings from the last board retreat. And Dr. Cosby, please.
Yes. So what I would like for us to do is we're going to do everything collectively this time, so that's why I said please take a seat anywhere that you like, and you all did. We're going to start with what we're going to call a gallery walk. If you'll remember, you filled out these papers, and we really didn't get a chance to dissect them. So we're going to honor time and still get a chance for everybody to take a walk, and you'll see on your tables you have a pad, a pencil, and you're going to write down your aha moments as you go from paper to paper to paper, and things that you see that may appear to be like a pattern. Is it on all 3 of them? Have you seen it before? Something along those lines. I'll go on and tell you then how we're going to move forward with this information. So once we get that information together, we're going to have a scribe, and Mrs. Mallory has decided that she would be so kind as to do that for us, and we're going to write down, you know, like some of your aha moments and things, and so that ultimately we'll know what we have there. And then we will identify our priority concerns. And again, this is going to be with some time in between. I'm just telling you what the day is going to hopefully look like. So you're going to take those little dots that you see, and you're going to get up again, and you're going to put your top 3, because now you've looked at them, we've discussed them, and you're going to go back through and say, these are our top 3 concerns, each individual, but we'll look at which of these items get the most, and that'll help us collectively determine what the top concerns are. After that, we'll start to talk about solutions. And we have a lot of solutions on these boards. You'll see that when you go around. And then we can sort of work on short and long-term solutions. Now, along the way, we may determine that something got, you know, like a lot of dots, but it also connects to something else so specifically that that makes this one a bigger concern for the whole group. So all along the way, we will be having whole group information. So what I'd like for you to do now, pick up your notebook, your little notepad, get started. We separated them so that it wouldn't be big lines anywhere. So, did you guys want to come out to the table?
Yeah, if there's room for us.
It appears to be room for you at the table.
Okay.
And then you're gonna grab your notepad as well and go around and look, you're looking for aha moments, patterns that you see on different boards. And Miss Mallory can help with that, as well as Miss Isaacs. She can help too if anybody has any questions about what you're doing. I did put which table it was up in the corner, so people over here are looking at the secondary table. People in this back wall are looking, it says BOE table, that's the Board of Education's table. And then over here, you're looking at the primary table.
We're looking at challenges or the solutions.
So you're looking across,
Challenges, right?
you're looking at both. You're looking really across it and see what the challenge is and the solution, and you may find that it's actually on all of these papers. Some of the things are.
You've been working every day, or you just? Is it gonna be see, you're I do, I would not, I'm actually see it, but I
Yeah. And had you not seen it, yeah, yeah. But you, yeah, now I do. Quakers, in my mind, is very, very. I don't see you as conservative. You've done that. You've done that. But you know what's so funny? So what's the difference? It's not Quakers that don't believe in modernization. That's what I'm thinking. Yes, exactly.
Unless a Quaker invite.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, did everybody go to each of the boards? Yes? You guys are fast, I'm okay with that, I think it's a basketball energy. It will take it. Okay. All right. So I got a few more people who are up and looking around. Hey, how you All right, if I can have your attention, I think that we are through looking at our document. And so Mrs. Mallory has agreed that she will, I'm told, that she will take your ahas and she will take things that you saw as a pattern so that we can get a start on sort of consolidating this information and finding out what things stood out the most to us. So, I don't know that I said a robust welcome, and thank you for coming in after hours. I do appreciate it. I do know how everybody is, got a lot going on right now, so we really do have a good group, and I appreciate it. So this will be very helpful as we work through these decisions. So if anybody, let's want to sort of start at one place, if you just want to raise your hand if you have something you would like to share. aha, or something that you saw as a pattern, it was on each of the sheets? Okay, Mr. Howard has
I
some.
would say maybe a pattern would be alignment of processes and protocols for management. That's my thought. It's not spelled out specifically on each one.
But some places it was systems or aligning protocols, things, processes, protocols. And that came on pretty much all of them.
In a new way.
Okay. All right, that's a pattern.
That
Staffing, you saw as a pattern because it was on all of them, okay?
Accountability, the need of diversity, the lack of accountability.
Okay. Accountability.
Parent engagement, parent engagement.
Parent engagement was another pattern.
I have one, inconsistent implementation of practices.
Praxis.
Yeah, and like,
Oh,
not
practice.
maintaining, yeah.
I'm sorry. Okay. Was that aha or was that? Okay. Inconsistent implementation of practices.
Initiative, yeah.
Okay. Initiatives. Okay. Yeah, similar to alignment, yeah. So she's talking about actually getting it done, so implementation. Okay. Yes, on the need for improving relationships. Pattern on all of them, okay, improving relationships. Is that with students and teachers or, and teachers with teachers and admin, everybody, improving relationships? Yes.
Does an have to be identifying an issue, or can it just be an observation? Does it? Okay.
Just an observation, maybe something that surprised you that you didn't think you would see.
Management was my management of maybe students, maybe management of application of policy and procedures, management of communication. So I just.
There's that term, management. Okay. All right, I saw another hand, yeah? Yes.
I'm not sure if staffing is okay.
Is a pattern, yeah, because it seems to be on each of the ones. Any other surprises?
I would say, that,
Support staff was, in that you were surprised that it came up as
just like
the need for it.
Like you saw it on our people, even as you said.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay, yes.
There was something that we mentioned, and I didn't see it anywhere else, but as I was looking around the room as it was being discussed, a lot of people were nodding like they were kind of in agreement with space.
Space, okay.
Utilization.
So that's an okay. That space made the list is a bit of an Yeah, I get it.
I think that for me, I don't know which one I started on, but it was the student and teacher relationship, so engagement as the big one.
Okay, student and teacher engagement.
Yeah, and it, someone on one of the boards said bring back fun.
I just want to say that.
As an bring back fun.
I didn't realize you wasn't having fun.
That doesn't mean everybody wasn't having fun.
That bring back fun was actually, it was on one of the charts, but the item beside it was building struggle with
maybe some, clear.
I thought, or I think that the bring back one also pertains to students.
Yeah, that's what I thought, as well. Student activities and things like that was what I thought too when I saw the bring back fund.
But it could be, that's why.
We wrote it
How
down.
they did involved, like, people want to enjoy coming to work. Yeah.
And I think when we do the engagement between the staff and the students, that's the fun part of it.
Right. Yeah. So we got engagement with fun, and like I said, there can be staff wanting to do more activities and things that they consider what makes you want to come to work, and students, again, same thing, what makes you want to come to school, or some of the quote-unquote fun activities and things like that. All right, so where are we? Anything else that's going on here? Okay.
I think I saw some patterns in regards to regulation, staff regulation, adult regulation,
Like
student self-regulation, yeah, for students and staff.
Okay, so you can put that either place. Okay. Was that on that you saw it as a pattern? Attendance for staff and students. Did you have your hand up?
So I don't, what I was gonna share isn't exactly in one of these categories, but I feel like as far as the staff goes, a lot of the reason why we have been addressing safety is because we need support in dealing with some of the behaviors and the situations that are happening in our buildings. And none of these papers and none of these things say that specifically. So the attendance, some of the attendance is due to injuries that are happening and things like that. And we need support in the processes and procedures and protocols and policies in order to help us address those behaviors and those things that are very different than what we have dealt with before.
Well, what I want to ask, or what our next piece of this is, now that we have our ahas and we have our patterns, and like I said, I think I was surprised that some of the challenges didn't make the list. For the most part, a lot of these things, well, some of them are challenges, but not of the type that you mentioned, like the disciplinary type thing. But they are on some of the list under the section that says challenges to safety and security. So this is just the review of what people said. Okay, so that's not really getting us to the action so much, but some people weren't here last time. So maybe you didn't get a chance to see what we did. And so this is just to give you an overview of what we did and what you saw come out of that. And I think that, to your point, a lot of these things lean towards, are we following the processes and procedures that we have in place? Without full staffing, we know that so many things happen as a result of that. The tiredness of covering classes and maybe short-temperedness of kids and staff. You know, we can read a lot into it. So I don't really want to, but I want you to know that even having these things up here do relate to a lot of what you're saying. Parent engagement. We all feel like if our parents were more engaged, some of these things would be mitigated. Inconsistent implementation, similar there. Need for improving relationships. Everybody agrees that that is a pattern. Need for self-regulation, both staff and students. And then our ahas, we were surprised that there are management issues. We're surprised that there was a need for support, space utilization, because we think we have plenty of space overall, and then engagement. So what we're going to do now to get more to the nitty-gritty, or the next part of this, is where we're going to talk about identify our priorities, the things that now we really want to deal with. And I would say, if you want to do this, the way I think will make your concerns rise to the top is you're going to go through and look at the challenges to safety and security on each one. You're gonna pick your top 3. So that's why I got all those little dots. And we're gonna see what are the most challenging things that are making it so that we don't feel safe. What's happening the most? Or what do we think is most important? Because we just wrote these lists as we thought of them. We didn't really prioritize. So anybody have any questions prior to us moving to that piece? Because that's what's going to get us talking about solutions. Yes, ma'am.
What's the color code system for? We have green, white, and blue.
So let's do green as your first choice. Because that way some people look at, there's a lot of greens, you know, that was everybody's first. And then blue can be second and red can be third. Okay? So you're going to walk around, you're going to take a green dot and put it on as the thing that's most important to you. The red is second, and blue, did I say it different this time? I got you. She wrote it up here. Number 1 is green, number 2 is blue, number 3 is red. So each person should only put up 3 dots, and each dot should be a different color. For all 3 boards.
Oh, not for all.
Right, for all 3 boards.
Everybody to put 3 dots on that.
No. You get 3 dots. Use them wisely. So green is your biggest concern. You may want to start with green. What is the most important thing that you want us to deal with?
Social media. Social media.
Is everybody finding it easy to put your green dots? Your number 1 priority that we need to be dealing with. That's green? That's green. Number 2 is blue.
Green is number 1.
Stuck, Yolanda.
All right, I think we almost got it narrowed down. Just want to check. We have looked over where you put your dots. Listen up. We have looked over where you put your dots and we found there are 3 top categories. And I think Ms. Isaac is going to sort of share those with you by sort of reading where the dots are, but tell them how we wrote it there, and then when you read them, they'll know.
Good evening, everyone.
So it appears that based on the dots,
We have our priorities, and it reads as parent engagement, student, staff support, conscious discipline. But overall, what it looks like is alignment, implementation, management. So
here we have alignment of processes, protocols, procedures. That was just a line up there. Yeah, that was what I wanted. So thank you for reading that, because it is a priority. That might be what the. I was wondering, I was like, boys and girls, don't set your classmates cheat sheet. There you go. Procedures, policies, and that aligns for BOE is documentation, follow-through, discipline, accountability. With the primary alignment, management, implementation, looks like regulations, systemic initiatives and practices. It looks like collaboration. It looks like the management component for staff, for students, for district. Self-regulation, students and adults. And then the parent engagement and collaboration piece.
So that self-regulation, I think, is number one, because we have the majority of the docs here. And again, as you said, what falls under that, classroom management, adult self-regulation, teacher-student relationships, classroom environment, and then student regulation, lack of sense of belonging, acting out, minimal social interactions. And on that board, that top one also deals with student behaviors. So those fell sort of together. I'll read what it says up here in case you guys have forgotten.
Dr. Howard,
Yes.
real quick, I noticed these two boards are talking mostly about adult behavior. When we go over there to talk about student behavior,
Right.
and that's something we have to look at because it's a pattern. Do these two things over here create some of them things over there?
They all do sort of go together.
That's a good aha.
Yes, it's a good aha. Yeah, because this is student aggression, and that's dealing with students and staff's input into it.
But staff use cell phone too, so.
So I think what,
Skipping too.
is what you're saying, that on these two boards, we're holding the adults accountable?
It talks about more of us as adults, our actions. Over there, it's talking about students' actions.
And this is the secondary campus who did this one. This was the boards, and there were some staff members there, and this was primary who did those. So how they see things may be a little bit different, but I think at the end of the day, we felt like systems getting in place was the one that got the most dots. And then self-regulation, or not even the most, but the dots that we said were number one. Self-regulation, both students and adult, was second, and parent engagement came in a far down third. It was hard to pick a third based on the dots.
So then if systems, practices, policies, the communication, if all of that is aligned, Mr. McCray, what I think I hear you saying is if the adults are managing the alignment, if the adults are initiating those relationships with students, all staff initiating those relationships, then some of these pieces with the student aggression, skipping being out of bounds, that is directly related to the management that needs to be reinforced by the adults.
So what we need to talk about, what we need to talk about at this point then are what solutions, recommended solutions were given for these things that we're talking about. And then are those ones that we can agree to, or do we want to add to them, or if something is something that we feel like maybe is not a good possible solution, then we can take it off.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
What was number one again?
Number one was systems and alignment, following protocols,
System alignment?
Management and implementation.
and implementation of,
Implementation?
mhm.
Self-regulation, adult, number two, and then parent engagement.
Yes, yes. So,
Can you say those one more time?
Yes. Number one, we said, is alignment and implementation and management of things that we already have. For example, following the student code of conduct, following the,
Student management piece. the
yeah, all the
regulation.
management pieces that you have in place already, making sure that we're doing those. Also for adults, the code of conduct. We already have things in place, but are they being followed with fidelity? Also, systems work in general to make sure that documents get where they need to be when they need to be. Things are done in order. So that was the first one.
Self-regulation, and that includes both adults and students.
And that's when we get into the behavior piece. Okay, that's when we get more into the student behavior piece.
And then finally, parent engagement and collaboration. And that might even include community collaboration, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I think what we need to do now is look at the proposed solutions, because if we're going to talk about what we can do short-term and what we need to do long-term, then we need to look at that information. Also, I want to share with you all, when we look at solutions, I have another little document that I'll share. So let's start on solutions for management. I'm going to not wear my mask, but I promise I won't get near anybody. I'll stay on the outskirts. Okay, inconsistency of implementing systemic initiatives throughout the district. The solution is to develop important systems that flow throughout the district. A lot of things, as we say, are already in place. It's more about implementing those things with fidelity. But that is the solution that was proposed on this one.
What's the solution at the top?
Well, this one is about classroom management number 2. So I was just sort of trying to go in order, and I was going to check the other 2. Then I'll come back to it.
That's the system.
Yeah, that was for systems. Do we have systems over there? Yes. What's our proposed solution?
Documentation, but kind of broad, I think.
Okay.
Follow through, discipline and accountability.
Solutions to, how was that written?
As solutions to alignment of processes, protocols, procedures, and policies.
Okay.
So that speaks more to like standardizing practices.
Yes. Okay.
And, I mean, I'm not sure who else at that table, but maybe there's some, we got a little bit more conversation maybe about the solution.
Yeah, if they have, if they have some concerns, if it's not evident what it is they're saying we need to do, and anybody wants to explain it a little further, that's fine. It seems sort of cut and dry on that one.
So we were talking about that there are some buildings that they don't all have the same issues. And when you look at why that is, there are some buildings that for various reasons, their makeup is a little bit different. And they are utilizing processes and procedures with a bit more fidelity, I think is the nice word to say, than other buildings are that are having certain issues. So we're just not utilizing it K-12, pre-K-12.
And that's what we're saying, standardize it, make sure everybody's using it with fidelity, hold people accountable to doing it. I think that's, was it a different solution over there?
I'm going to say specifically revisit restorative practices, health. So this is staffing related to that, standardizing some things, analyzing data for locations, additional supports. I'm looking at the integrating PBIS in all practices. Just trying to determine how this is connected, but I don't know that it really is. This was from the secondary piece, and again, because this is student-related, it may not necessarily address the other component. I think it is a symptom of that work over there.
But you could align them things to the procedure, the process, protocol, solutions of it.
Absolutely.
So it just could be a protocol, procedure, or policy that you put in place, and then all the rest of it. That could be loaded. And are we following them and are we doing it together? So some of them things can go under that, that line. Some of them things go through.
I think alignment of staff. Not all staff in one position is doing the same type of job in all buildings.
Say that again, ma'am.
Not all of the people in the same named position are doing the same kind of work in all buildings.
So there's one job description, there's one job description for a position, but everybody's doing something.
It looks very different.
It looks different.
And some of it is developmental for that building, but some of it is
Expectations set by.
yes.
Because at one time, a year or 2 years ago, that was kind of a transition.
Listen up.
We had developed positions, and then we were leaving it up to the discretion of the building administrator on how they felt they could best utilize a person in a given position in their particular setting. And I think that kind of created the situation where, as you're saying, you have people with the same title, but they're doing something a little different. Could I throw something else out? Okay.
You're on a roll, Mr. Andrews, keep going.
No, you don't want to. But, an old coach, there used to be a T-shirt a few years ago, it was real popular, said, "Sports is life." And I believe in that. And I believe it can be applied to everything. And so I'm saying that to say, in your really successful programs, they have a developmental program before they get to the varsity. And the developmental program is built on what the expectation is at the varsity. So that every year, as the athletes go through those programs, they are learning the same set of expectations, the same types of executions and things. And so when they get to the varsity level, then basically they already kind of know what to do, and you're just directing it in general, but everybody is flowing with it. And I don't think that's what's going on in our district. And I think what happens is as they move from one field to the other, expectations change, reactions and responses to those expectations being met or not being met are different. And so you have that mix plus students who are coming in from other environments, and it makes everything real inconsistent and incoherent, and it creates a lot of confusion in what's going on. But I think it all starts with administration and staff, because the adults should be running the building, not the students. And love them to death, I like them to do their thing, but at the end of the day, there is an accountability, and it's not them.
Mr. Andrews, I just want to say too, I appreciate the fact that, even from the board level, that you can own that. At some point, we did want to give building administrators the autonomy to use your people as you need them. But people are human beings, so then they become tied to these jobs or tied to what I was told to do versus what I'm supposed to be doing in relationship to my job description. And there was so much transientness that we have in the district. A new administrator comes and it's like, well, no, this is what decision's supposed to be doing. But this is not, this is what I've been doing for years. And that may be because the past administrator had some autonomy to have you to do some things, but it's not aligned, and it's messing up the alignment across the district that we're expecting. So a parent may go to one building and be like, well, the student encourager in that building, this is what they did, and they did it or not. But you go to another building, the student encourager doesn't do that. The student encourager sits in the room all day with some kids and never sees any of the other kids in the building.
Ms. Valerie, I'm going to take that one step. We were deemed on the job description because when the state came in, the state went to each building and said, what is your job? It was the same position, but everybody had a different job. And so they deemed the district. and we as a board were deemed, because people didn't know their job. It was created by management, but that's not what it was intended to be. So when we talk about alignment, you have a job, and whatever it is, it shouldn't vary so much that it's unrecognizable from building to building. Even with the input of the administrator, there still should be a basis for that job and what they do. Right, and
So the board or the district was deemed, what was the plan of correction so it could be unified, so it could be across the board? For the entire district?
that's when we went on the 2-day retreat, and we set up the strategic plan and strategic goals, not just the board, but we had teachers, administrators there, parents there, and students. So, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what we come up with if it's not going to be implemented with fidelity. It doesn't mean we have to all own what we say we're going to do. And given that, the alignment piece, job descriptions that are accurate, and even if the administrators use those jobs in like a different way because of the way their building flows, the essence of the job is still the job.
Yeah, I think we, yes. So we get a strategic plan. Who holds the person or the team who do the strategic plan accountable to ensure that that's what we're following, so we don't be paying again. So we are, across the board, across the district, when I say board, I don't mean just the board, but across the board, who holds the individual accountable? Because when you measure, that's when you get it done. If it's not measured, then it goes wasted. So that's my question. I'm due to come in, so everybody don't throw it out there at once, but.
So I think I can answer that. Okay, so we have a strategic plan that was developed. And so when I got here right away, I did notice that there was not good alignment from building to building. I know, I've said that we really need to make sure that the basis of what is happening happens from one building to the next building to the next, even though based on the needs of the children, it may look a little differently in one place than another. But to everybody's point, a lot of these positions should have at least enough of a basis that you know what we're talking about. So I get what everyone is saying. So we have a strategic plan. You guys hold me accountable for making sure it's fulfilled. Then I hold my principals accountable. Principals hold the teachers accountable. So that's the way that accountability rises. So you all developed it, and then I carry it out through the use of my exec team, my principals, my teachers. So that's the way that goes.
Can I? So come from the treatment and correctional setting, and dealing with the state 30 years, some things you just want to get dinged on. It's just, you go to get dinged on it every year, they know it, they just got to accept it. I'm going to just speak from being the parent engagement. What's needed at the parent engagement at the middle school is completely different from what's needed at the middle school. What's needed at the ELC is completely different than what's needed at the high school. When I marked my things, I was coming from the parent engagement role, dealing with the kids and the families. I put social media, somebody like social media is not an issue. Yes, it is. When I talk to these kids and their parents, 90% of their issues come from social media and it filters into the school. The majority of our fights started because of the social media. Teachers don't see that because we're now coming from something else. So what I'm trying to say is we just can't get caught up in what everybody else is doing. This is our district, these are our kids, we got to put them out the best way we can. What's good for here may not be good somewhere else, but we're not there. This is where we are. I just told a board member here, our biggest issue is that our kids leave Trotwood, become successful, but don't come back to Trotwood. And we got to change that culture. We got to bring those kids who have been successful, bring them back to Trotwood so our kids can see, oh, it did work. Oh, what they were saying, that's what they said, and this is what's going to happen. They hear it, but they don't see it.
And Ms. Cherry, just as far as accountability, the association does have a process that engages in the accountability, especially as it relates to those inconsistencies in positions as they are in each building, and we have addressed them this year to the point that they have risen to the district LMC level.
Okay, so what I would say is I think we are probably all in agreement that this is something that could be like a short term. I mean, it'll take a long term to ultimately get everything where we want to, but we can start it right away. If we're talking about what's short term versus what's long term, what can we get started on right away, right? Is that agreement with what that term is, how we're looking at things that are either short term or long term? Okay, so it's not like we gotta wait on things to come or whatever. We have these things. They just need to be put in place. When we talk about alignment of people's positions, then that's something that we will end up looking at again because positions come up quite a bit on these, on our sheets as we talk about what buildings need. Yes.
No, we were at this table with the board and talked about the whole time now. Not just that we have it, but then we look at it and revise it.
Yeah, and I think that was one of the recommendations, is that we take some time and maybe look at it at different times, and so we get through it over time. But I think that, again, that's something we could get that scheduled, and we could make that happen. The most important piece on this is implementing it with fidelity. And that goes to holding people accountable.
But because I think it also needs to be consistently communicated. And when we were talking about that at the board table the last time, that's where the documentation came. It's one thing that we are telling individuals how a process or procedure or system is going to work, but to clearly communicate it, and it's in writing, and we document that this is what the process is, so that everybody is aware.
But everybody, when we start the school year, gets the employee code of conduct, we go over it, so that there's like no question about expectations of staff.
I would say no, because like the onboarding is a subset of this. I didn't do any of that as a new staff. So, and there are gaps that we're gonna,
Yeah.
I think that's what she's saying, is if we have written procedures, and we know it's in Translate or wherever, we know where to look, right, to find this procedure. What I was also commenting on, is Wanda was talking about the student code of conduct, that if we're saying that this is what our process is, addressing some of those behaviors that we're looking at supports and self-regulation and student regulation, that there's an understanding of what I'm processing as you tell me, but is there a document that somebody can go to and say, this is what we're going to do, that aligns the support services that's offered in the district, that's aligned to all of the staff that's then related to those support services, that we can reach out to as we address all the needs of the staff and the students.
I do have a document that I wanted to share with you that does talk about who we have in the district. That was one of the questions that was asked. And so we can look at that, and then, because it is a little different per building, some buildings have different, but you'll get a sense of how many people we have in different areas and how they are being used. I think, is that what you're sort of saying? People want to know, what can I expect if my title is this? What am I supposed to be doing, or what should people expect me to do when they interact?
When I have questions.
Yeah. Did you have a
I
hand?
did, because I think the part that maybe we're missing is we're talking about all of the things that we need. And one of the reasons we're asking, what is our support staff? What does that makeup look like? Well, you want to know, because you want to know, do we have enough of each of those to support the number of students we have, to support the number of disciplines concerns we have. So one of the things I think we have to make sure we're doing is a review, a real review of, this is the program. We did open enrollment, right? Do we know that that's driving an increase in behavior? We don't, because we have to look at it. So unless we look to see, and I know we know some of these, because we put the exact location of where some of the students are skipping things. But do we need additional staff? Do we have enough staff on this wing and on this wing? So that was my thought. Do we have, I was talking to one of the mental health people and they were feeling overwhelmed because they couldn't get to each of the students that they needed to. So those are the kinds of things we can talk about, that we have them, but do we have enough of them to support the behaviors and things? So I think if we shift what our concentration on is, it is the how, but it is, truly, do we have the right mix in place to support the behaviors and the students and the teachers? So what does that process look like?
So here's where we are then. I think that everybody is probably in agreement that we're okay with this first thing that people want us to work on. Getting these systems in place, when a lot of them are in place, but using them with fidelity, making sure everybody knows. So now we're at the second one, which I think, even though it didn't get as many of the first place marks, I think it is the concern of most of us, and that's the student behavior, okay? So I'm gonna take this one off, and we're gonna move to that. And we called it student and staff self-regulation. But the way it was defined was more classroom environment, student-teacher relationships, adult self-regulation, classroom management, then student self-regulation. For the students, a lack of sense of belonging, they were acting out, minimal social interactions, that type of thing. The recommended solutions on this paper, and I can go around, I will. Classroom management, PD is basically what that's saying. Having more district and community events, some peer mediation, and then they wanted to incorporate recess by design. SEL instruction was also added to this. Now, when we go over here, I don't think there's much on this one that had to do with students and student behavior. Yeah, this is the one that said revisiting student code of conduct, but we already talked about that. So now we go over here. And this is the secondary campus. And remember, we did say the needs are different at each building. So here we talk about student aggression. Students and staff being aggressive with each other. A lot of these sort of fall into it, even though they didn't get as many marks. Skipping out of bounds, cell phone use. I know at the middle school that was their number one issue in our conversations. Disrespect and insubordination. So, because these things sort of go together, what do we have as recommended solutions? Says start having de-escalation conversations. So you have to know the steps to do that. There's a website called Reboot website, having authentic conversations with their students, analyze the data for locations of aggression. We have that. Where do things happen? Typically in the classroom was where most of it happened. Revisit restorative justice person, mental health support and staffing, and transition planning. So when the kids leave 8th grade, get them transitioned to coming into 9th. So those were some of the recommended solutions.
On that one,
Uh-huh.
so we mentioned that there's a website.
Uh-huh.
So who is responsible for that? Are we saying each teacher practice these de-escalation? And if so, I'm new to the district, I'm teaching English at somewhere. And so how will I know that?
Well, Miss Mallory did a building tour at the beginning of the school year, and I think you guys hold meetings that deal with these. Is it monthly?
Every building has a gatekeeper, which has to trickle back out to the building social worker, who should be able to navigate and send them to that website.
Yeah, because I was at one of the meetings where they presented, and they told them about this resource.
Ms. Freeman, is that it is not in the set expectation that this is what we use as a building to self-regulate for our students. It's been an option. You can use this might work, try it, but it has not been, this is what we expect every adult or every student to be able to take part in. Does that make sense?
It does.
So it's a difference.
What's the difference in a social worker and our Good Samaritan and mental health therapist, right? So what's this?
So our mental health therapist works with identified students who need mental health support. The social worker is the gatekeeper of resources for the field.
When do they get referred? So what's the trigger that sends the student to the social worker as opposed to the mental health? So if I have Johnny here or whoever, and they just tore up the bathroom, who will they see first?
Well, after they've seen the principal or whatnot, you mean who sees
I mean,
Johnny
for
see
the
first
mental-
or the teacher see first? Who?
So the teacher would refer them, I'm that new teacher,
Yes.
so where am I gonna send this school?
So each building has a different set
Oh,
of
that's what you just
expectations.
said.
So some call the assistant principal, some call the TOSA, some will call their student engager or the counselor.
And I really just wanted to know the difference between who sends them to the social workers versus the mental health.
They have to go back to the social worker first.
So,
They go where?
The social worker is the person that recommends them to the mental health.
the different reasons.
Okay.
But that
Because it might not
procedure,
be mental health because the kids were in classroom. You know what I mean?
Right.
that procedure, policy, or protocol, whatever P word you want to put on it, wasn't consistent in all the buildings until December. In December, we didn't have the same one person as the gatekeeper. So those are the kinds of things that we're asking for as a staff to be documented. Who do we, exactly your question. I have somebody in my classroom and I know they need extra help. Who do I call first? And then if you tell me a title, who's the person that has the title? Like, I may know it because I've been there for a long time, but a lot of our staff, they don't know who those people are. And to say that we've had meetings, the meeting about these things happened in September, and the issues that we're having now are not the same as what we were having in September. And so, as everything is changing, we do need to align supports and all of that. We need to revisit it all the time, a refresher, just like we do our own PD for our licensure. It's the same exact idea as what we need to do to keep the district consistent and working like we need it to.
But that should happen often at the building level.
And it isn't.
Okay, Ms. Freeman, I'm a high school social worker here, Hi, how are you today? Okay. I just want to, a social worker in some people's mind is like mental health therapist. We have over 700 kids at the high school. We have one mental health therapist who's here to give her help, who has a defined caseload. The kids on the ED unit, anybody who has an IEP and is assigned mental health, get first dibs. I need to be so proud about that. They get first dibs.
They get prioritized.
Okay. And so what happens from there, we still have to get paperwork completed by a parent. And a lot of our children, and this is something I brought to many people's attention, we have group homes and foster care. And to find somebody to give permission can take 4 weeks, 6 weeks. And I have a waiting list for our SRC person. She has 30 referrals from me. I'm sorry, student resiliency counselor. She has 30 referrals from me, but only 7 families have complied. So in the meantime, we have these kids with needs. Their parents won't sign off, so they can't utilize those 2 people. And that's it at the high school. So that's a struggle perception. When I have somebody, hey, can you talk to this person? I talk to them, I get the ball rolling, paperwork is filled out, and we can see them up to 6 times, my Samaritan person, without parental consent. My SRC can low-key do that as well. but if the parents don't do it, their hands are tied. And then I struggle with, hey, thanks for looking out, but we can't do anything. And that kid is continually having behavioral problems.
And one of the things that I think we need to mention on top of your conversation you just had, even when we notice that and we acknowledge that and we put out, opportunities for people to come here and do this type of work, it's hard to find.
Yes.
Because particularly, I know this year when everybody's coming back to school, we have more mental health situations than typical. So it's not that even we would imagine that 1-2 people could handle all of the cases that we have. It's just actually also finding the people to do the work. So it is exacerbated by the numbers that we have in our district on all levels. And so I can only imagine, we have 5 social workers in the district, that's 1 per building. The building sizes differ, the needs differ, but as a board, and as a superintendent, oftentimes when you hear, we need more, it's hard to imagine it until we have a discussion like we're having today and we find out what in fact we do have and that we probably do need more support in a lot of these areas. So everybody got our community within the school page. So if you glance at that, a piece of this student regulation and staff regulation and supporting behaviors of our kids, we need to use everybody. We talked about this. This is the whole idea of PBIS. Food service staff need to be trained in how to interact with their kids appropriately and be a big part of their day, what happens with them. We talk about everybody is aware that the bus driver is the first person that sees the kid. And if they know how to appropriately interact with them and all, they at least get a good start to their day. If they don't, the kid is going to get a bad start. So all these numbers are important, even though you may wonder why do we have some of them on here, because anybody that interacts with their students should be at minimum knowing what we're doing when we talk about PBIS. We were talking about the more severe cases when we talk about social work and mental health and our mental health pieces that we've been able to, get together, but it's not enough. I think everybody agrees. We have a nurse in each building. You can see, you're looking at it. I don't need to read through it. But most of the buildings, people ask for support, as in, physical body support. And it's interesting because some of the buildings I did here say, we don't need any more people. We just need to make sure everybody's doing what they're supposed to. Ms. Michelle.
Just a question, the 5 and, got 7, is that like you have 5 to 7 student encouragers?
Right, we have 5 student encouragers, but I think we have space to have 2 more if we could find 2 more. We talked about increasing that number.
So for those staff that's been doing well, student encouragers, are those our math monitors? I'm not trying to go back.
They used to be math monitors.
Okay, so they were the ones that were stationed in the building, make sure they're not going in the bathroom, make sure they're not stealing out food. So we have 5 and 7 within the district. So it's not like we definitely, wherever this board was, over here would be full of kids there. Yeah, that's all.
So I think when we talk about the additional staff, and I don't think anybody is negating the fact that we probably do need more hands on deck, the issue then becomes, where do we put these people? And I'm not suggesting that we have modules or trailers. And so when we talk about the buildings are built to accommodate a certain number of students or people in the building, then we have to look at the level of work that is being accomplished. If you are the mental health
therapist, you can't be in an open setting if you're dealing with a student that is a part of your caseload. So I think some of the sensitivity of what the nature of the work that is being conducted, I think that is where the space issue is coming into play. And I don't know, I'm not a logistics person. So if you're telling me that I'm in a building and I have to try to navigate or manipulate where I can, here's another word, coagulate staff in a way so that those that need to have private conversations have the space to do that versus how many students I can have or how many staff I can have in this hallway because these don't have that level or that nature of sensitivity. I don't know where I would go with that. I don't know who would I talk to if I was a building administrator. Who would help me map my way through that? I don't know. Am I making sense?
No, we have a particular incident I know has come up. I think in one of our buildings, we have mental health worker on a stage. 3 of them on a stage. 3 people who work privately, need to be working privately with students, are having to do the work on the stage. But I think to the point of what is in the other classrooms, because I think that's the building that said, we really don't need more people, we just need people to be able to do their jobs like they're supposed to. So let's say we have a person in a room that's doing work that's not confidential or not private, then they could take a space on the stage. If it's just basic, taking attendance or work like that with kids that's open and everybody knows, but that office may need to be used by someone doing private conversations with kids. So that's the kind of thing that I think the administration needs to look at and say, are we using our spaces effectively?
Now, we have the multi-campus here, so do we have space at the ELC?
For a camera?
No, no.
Oh, sorry.
We have classroom space or conference room space at the ELC. If the middle school needs additional space, if we have space over there, then I don't know.
Well, that is their capacity. But that was one of the conversations that as we were just sort of brainstorming and thinking that piece through, like is there an office here that someone who doesn't have to be tied to a building? Because some of these, they work for more than one building, so they can have their space. Because if most of the work that you're doing involves being in different buildings, being out, doing other stuff, it doesn't really matter where your space is. So to answer your question, we could probably find space even if it's in another building, if they're not attached to a building.
And I think from the standpoint of operations, what we need to do is maybe just sit down and try to work with the principals to try to reorganize. I know that we got space in these buildings because we all know what these buildings were built for. But because we're doing things differently, we're talking about built for kids versus built for adults. And we've got to kind of find out where some of those open spots are and how we can reposition some classrooms or reorganize a little bit. And I think that's the conversation that I've had with, I know Mr. Gibson and some of the other principals in that regard. Just saying that we need additional space without evaluating the space that we've had to try to make that work.
Right.
Would be correct.
But this year isn't the first year that we brought up the space issue. It's actually come up for almost the last 3 years. So I guess I look at today being the second piece of I'm just speaking for me. The second piece of this safety retreat. When are we going to get to analyze what we need so that we can restructure? Because there are multiple teachers. There's a lounge for teachers to eat, staff to eat lunch, to have a time to make a private phone call. There's a teacher that has their space in this building. So I don't know where we're going to find a space because we're in every nook and cranny. And I don't know how we're going to do that. But when is that conversation going to happen?
So
So you're in luck. I was like leading in for it, I was like, there you go, there you go. So, of course, the purpose of this meeting is to bring these things to light, and then, Mr. Howard, for example, has already said, okay, I need to start looking at all the spaces in these buildings and figuring out what we're gonna do, and we can do timelines, like when do we expect to have some information back, to the group. But that is the work of exec cabinet as we talk with the buildings and the principals and the people who are involved. So I can tell you that what we're waiting for is the go-ahead, that everybody's in agreement, these are things we need to do. So we talk about space, I think we're in agreement on that. Need support for mental health and behavior issues. I think at this point, most of us are probably in agreement. Principals have sent me what they call their list of things that will be helpful to them. That's still a discussion, how would you use this person, where would they be? But that's my discussion with my principal, so that will be taking place. I think they know it, they're prepared for it, they've started. Okay, so, is there anything, if we're going to be looking at behaviors of our kids, and we're going to be talking about need for support for mental health, I know, for example, is there anything that's like out here and nobody's saying it out loud because we need to say it because the timekeeper is telling me our time is going? Yes, sir.
No, look, and this, and we talked about support for the mental health behavior. Being honest, before, when there was a restorative justice first, the restorative justice, that helped a lot with the mental health and the behaviors. The dean and the student encouragement helped a lot with the mental health and the behaviors. We were trained by the restorative justice person on how to deal with them. So when those situations will come up, a lot of times, teachers could stay in the classroom with you teachers because you had multiple people that were able to go ahead and deal with these situations. And now, even when you look at the community within the school, those are missing lots. And so for a principal, I can only imagine what it's like to try and deal with these things, and I don't have enough tenant. I can't reach out. I can only imagine what it's like to be the teacher, and now I don't really have, I might have sent this kid out, but when I sent this kid out, now this other kid spazzes out, or whatever you want to call it, and now they're in my class, and there's only one person I could call, and they took that kid, so now I got to deal with this kid. So it's
So
all.
how many restorative justice positions did we have? Do you remember? One per building? Okay.
And also to that, let me say, for the building that I was in, when I said restorative, it was restorative all the way through. So there were I can't remember, every Wednesday or every other Wednesday, as a staff, we met and had restorative circles as staff. At times, if there were issues with staff having kids, that was a conversation we had, that was a mediation we had. It was restorative with parents and kids, parents and staff, and it was all the way through it. So when you have that, like even for me as an employee, a lot of times I would be able to come down based off of the restorative conversation with the staff. So it's those things that we truly are missing. And when the staff misses it, it's going to trickle down to the people. And so yes, the staff is a little bit more, we're a little bit more uptight throughout the day.
Right, and it kind of goes back to the alignment of processes and protocols and things too, because every restorative practice person wasn't doing those things throughout their building as well, so it still goes back to these great job descriptions, but being allowed to kind of have some autonomy to it. use them as you need them.
But even with this process, it won't be of one person, it was a practice that was utilized by the entire staff. So there was a key player, but everybody was doing it. It was how the building just worked.
And you're talking about the high school. Well, you were in the high school, that's why I
Yeah,
asked.
no, I just mean, even with what Ms. Freeman is saying, that it's not just that we need this individual, but the individual then led, like they had, I use your own words, tentacles. That are
I got it. I got it. I was just making sure I wasn't miss something. Yes, we got a hand. Let's do that hand and then we'll come back.
Where is the restorative justice? I'm hearing about it. Sound like it was, something that was raised in I'm hearing that it is needed, so I'm asking where is it? Where's the
So,
restorative justice?
yeah, that too.
It's all gonna go back to alignment process. So that's just gonna keep circling us back there. So when we lost the restorative justice position, we founded and built on the fact that restorative practice is a practice that everyone is supposed to learn, support, and try to use. So we've had monthly restorative practice PD sessions that support staff, we're supposed to attend, take back information, share with their staff, practice it with their staff. That's where the piece gets dropped. When it's time to take it back to the building and what they're expected or allowed, or maybe have time, I don't know, to present and share with their staff. So,
When I was doing that, Ms. Mallory, I was the restorative justice specialist at the middle school. And as Mr. Freeman said, I was a point of contact where teachers could call. If the dean or principal were busy, teachers knew they could call. Ms. Alexander, can you come to the room, so-and-so, I have a student, and I could grab him. I could help de-escalate, we did circles. We did also have circles with staff circles, and staff and teacher circles, so, staff and student circle. And it was just another resource. Also, it was a place where students could come and calm down, like a cool off, before they explode into a fire or something. It was a source of prevention as well, because they knew they could go and have a place to calm down, to talk, cool off, and then return back to class. So what we did at the middle school, I felt it was very successful. I had not heard anything differently. My administrator was approved the work that I was doing there, and it was just disheartening to see these positions go away, because students are needing an outlet, and they can't talk with their teacher because the teacher is teaching and there's an issue going on, and other people's hands are tied. A lot of times I'll speak with Mr. Pearson, his parent engagement, but a lot of times we have to, help where we can, because teachers can't stop teaching to deal with the discipline issue. So, we may jump in and help out, but removing that position and that person from the building, it really hurt, and you can just see it in all of the buildings, how everyone are having these same problems. And yes, I am passionate about it. I am, and I just think that was one position that should not have been lost.
So, thank you. Thank you, we appreciate your time. What I'd like to do is we talked a lot about what we had and what we took out. There were a lot of reasons, and there was some HR stuff that was going on, and we're in negotiations now, the way those positions were categorized. So, given where we are, and given what we hear that we need, and some of us actually thought we needed it then, our hands were somewhat tied to how this position was categorized. Well, now we're in negotiations. We're looking at possibly the solutions based on what the superintendent is hearing. And again, when we talk about safety and security, that seems as if it was a huge component. And another was it effective? Well, we knew that it was working, now we've taken it away, and now we're sitting here in our second retreat talking about discipline and all of those things. So I'd like to, Superintendent, you have all of that down, because I'd like to get to your short and long-term solutions and actions. And as far as the Board of Education with review of policies, I really quick, I want to open that up to the board about that policy, the policies that we were given with the hyperlinks. We can always come back to that at a retreat because there's a lot of policies. But what I'm most interested in is what the superintendent has designed to address these problems and how we use our ESSER dollars. And I'd like to know the steps and the timeline for those things.
Okay, and let me say this. I think as we talk about, and I'll say it quickly, as we talk about the needs and the support for mental health issues, what I think I heard everybody said is that we may want to look at trying to bring back a restorative justice piece. But let me say this to be clear. We all know one more person in each building is not going to answer all of our issues. Is that correct? Right, okay. Because even when we look at trend data, there were some other issues going on, but this does impact in a positive way some of our students. So I don't want us to get so lost in it that we think we don't need other types of support. So what you have now is, like I said, you all know that I have done, we've done our retreats, we've done conversations with staff, I did town halls, we have done surveys, talked to folks, and I have some short-term things that I think will make a quick change in what's happening in our buildings. And let me say this to you. One of the things that I feel like is frequently a pushback is these things don't happen in Trotwood. We don't want to look like police state. We don't want certain things. But the reality of it is, in South Carolina, a 12-year-old shot a 12-year-old and killed him at school. Okay, we know these things happen. They can happen anywhere. The question is, what have we done to try our best to stop them? All I hear from staff, all the smoking going on in the bathroom, all the vaping going on, all these things are happening. If you believe it or you don't, doesn't really matter. Why would we put smoke detectors that can also detect vapor in the bathroom? Because if I'm ever asked, if a parent says, well, I didn't even know my kid was doing that. How are they doing it in your bathroom? Well, we don't have anything in place to try to stop it. That doesn't mean we'll stop everything. But I'm proposing that, and that's a short-term proposal because you just put in the order, get them in. The second one sort of goes to what you were talking about, the cell phones being the biggest contention at the middle school, probably at the high school as well, but the middle school keeps focusing on it. If you've been to a basketball game, if you've been to a concert, if you've been anywhere, you have probably been asked to either wear like a clear pouch or something, or you can only bring a little bag. I was trying to go to a Pacers game. I had my purse, and the lady said, take it back to your room, because they ain't gonna let you in. I had to only bring my little wallet.
What were you trying to go to a patient?
Desperation, just get out of the house. But I'm saying that to say, cell phone pouches as a pilot program at the middle school might be a good place because they're coming from elementary where they can't really have a phone and then they get them. And they're really not so used to them at the elementary. I see Mr. David shaking his head. So they have them too. So anyway, I want
They actually
to
got
get
better phones than we have.
better phones. Well, that's why we don't take them. The idea of the pouches, you're not fighting with the kids for taking their phone. What happens is in the morning in their advisory or whatever that first period is, or if it's in elementary, that teacher puts them in a pouch and the kid walks around with it. So they have it with them, they just can't get into it because the pouch is magnetized. at the end of the day, the magnet opens it. Okay, so mama can't say that you took it, that, you know, they still have it on them, okay? Because that's the biggest problem for teachers, is I don't want to fight about a phone. Or I don't want to lose a $300 phone and have to pay for it. $800 phone. You see how old my phone is.
So that's just for the middle school. Is that what
Right
we're looking
now,
at?
that's what I'm proposing. We could all of these numbers, I'll be honest with you, I thought we had a lot more money than I think we do. Treasurer is working on that to get us an exact number, so I brought down what my ask. I brought down my ask to accommodate the money to make sure that we don't overspend.
So this is just for the middle school.
So right now, I'm proposing we pilot it at the middle school. And then Evolve Express, and I said metal detector, it's not the old-fashioned metal detector, it's the kind that if you have been anywhere, you walk through it, you don't even know it. It like sends like these things, invisible things through you. It's happening everywhere. You don't have to put your hands, you don't have to do nothing, you just walk. And it can spot weapons and things like that. So it doesn't ring bells, but what happens is, if you're the person that is identified to do it, let's say the SRO at the high school, he'll get notification on his phone, on his computer, and then he looks, sees who it is, goes pick him up and deal with it like that. I have one here, middle school and high school. And alternative setting.
Before you move on, you
Yeah.
have middle school and high school, are there any issues in the elementary school with the same problem? Or was it more middle school and high school?
You're talking about,
Yeah, the cell phone. Because right now, we're only addressing the middle school and high school,
The cell phone?
middle school for the cell phone. But is there an issue anywhere else?
Yeah,
Not like,
I mean, our cell phone leads to fights because they're associated. So with the little kids, I don't think they. No,
did you on the bus?
They are on the bus.
The bus?
The TikTok, oh, utilize the cell phone.
They do that in second, third grade too. They get twice.
So maybe we can look at that and how we do, again, alignment, you know, same with the metal detectors. And I'm gonna ask, because I don't know, but we have middle school and high school, do we have issues in the elementary school? Because you're talking about a 12-year-old who came in and shot another 12-year-old.
Yes.
And, well, in another state.
We've
But-
not had weapons brought to school, have we?
Yes, we have. Yes, we have.
Yes.
And that's part of the safety and security conversation.
so let me say this, for example. We, because I know Ms. Judy Freeman's like, how do I not know? But if you remember when those students came into the building,
Right.
you knew the students came in the building 2 days later, an Uber driver was killed. So it has come out that they're pretty sure that there was a weapon in the building at that time, but it went in and out. That's the point, Ms. Judy Freeman, we don't know, because we have no way to monitor it. We don't have see-through backpacks, we don't have wands, and we don't have metal detectors, so we don't have any way of knowing. But that's one way that we believe that there probably was one in that building that day. We don't know definitively, but
So I have a question, so we have metal detectors, who's gonna man the metal detectors? And it's just like if, you know, they monitor from 9 to 10, I mean, these students slip, so at 1 o'clock, somebody else coming in and making sure that they didn't got in, you know what I mean, to avoid the metal detectors, so I'm just understanding.
well, it's a different way. That's what I'm saying. It's not, I manned a traditional metal detector where I had to stand there, you know, and the kids go by, and then if it beeps, you have to wand them and all that. This is not that.
They're talking about the one at the airport?
Yeah, she's talking about something like, almost like a temperature thing, that you walk through and it'll automatically, and everybody has to flow through that, no matter what time of day it comes out.
And then they can see the temperature that your head turned red, so they can find you. Okay.
And they don't even look like metal detectors, it could be a plant or something.
I'm trying to keep personal opinion as it relates to medical detectives and perception. Because I do understand about safety. But if our kids have school spirit, if our kids enjoy coming to school, they want a lot of those things to take place in school. They would say, man, no, you're not gonna open that door for us, we never, because we don't do that. I'm trying to keep my own, because I just don't like medical protection in schools, because it has.
I hear what you're saying, Mr. Napier, I do. What I would say to them, when we get to that point, we'll know it, but I would imagine everybody in here would say we are not at that point right now. Nobody feels confident. Students, I meet with students at the high school, and whether it's true or not, they are afraid not of what they do and what they potentially think their best does, but of what everybody else is doing. They know we have no way of knowing, and they don't trust it.
You know, I'm
And
not,
they said,
I know I won't be able to go back on the street, and I didn't make that statement.
no, I don't mind you making
I
that
just,
statement.
I think it sends the wrong message to the youth. I know it's.
Well, the only thing I feel is, I definitely agree with this. But coming from, I actually was in a situation where I was in the building. I believe his wife and I been working together at the time. The school had great school together at the time. It was coming up, our first one at the time, we just had, and we had great economic and stuff to get the school spirit going and everything. And one day, it was actually one of my football players, former football players, but he had a gun. He had a gun in the school. And Mr. Smith, in addition to time, he and another staff member, they got the kid, and I ended up jumping out the window, ran across the street, they were chasing me. Like, it was crazy. There was something I would have never expected. This kid I would have never expected it. But he was going on a different path. And after that, he fell some more later on, you know what I mean? He got it back together now, but just, it's no telling how that day could have turned out. You know, I definitely feel everything. I can't forget that day.
Yeah, so, you know, we understand things happen. I mean, even unusual things, or a kid was good and something happened and they got good at school. So you're basically recommending medical protection for the high school and for the middle school, correct?
Yes.
I want to get through all of the recommendations, but no, go ahead, Mr. Davis.
If there is a polarization about that, or a police state or militarization of that, I think the warrants are minimal. I mean, we can place those, we can move those, and then in some cases, you can have to print some other, 2, 3 brothers to do, but again, I think that's manpower, but what I'm looking at is, which one was one somewhere, okay, dude, okay, it's cool. Y'all trust each other, you know what I mean, but think about the elementary, you know, I'm not gonna get into details, because I really got a thing about being on camera talking about our children. So I'm not gonna get into that, but what I'm looking at here is, we can minimize it or we can maximize it. I'm okay with that. My children are in school district, so I pretty much got my heart and my foot on the train and so on, so.
Well, that's definitely something maybe we could have a conversation about for the younger grades, you know, maybe some other type of, way to handle it, so.
What do we need to really remember? All the guns are not just coming into the building. A lot of them are still stashed outside. So we're after school where they can happen. So we need to think about that. Just because they got them, we need to bring them in the building. And maybe have it for after school. Because we have 2 or 3 occasions where kids decide to meet up after school to try to fight.
Can we move on to the next?
Yes. Yes. Okay, next.
What we're gonna do is we're gonna let the superintendent get through these items quickly, you know, so that we understand, and then Q&A in between, after you're done with it. That was.
Sounds like a plan.
Yes.
Okay, then the next one, Now, I'm not talking about old-fashioned alternative school that you guys are familiar with, that's punitive, you know, you get suspended, in lieu of suspension, you get sent into a dungeon, literally, and there was a room that looked like a dungeon. You get sent in there, nobody really deals with you for the 10 days, and you come back to school, nothing's changed. That's not what we're talking about. What I'm talking about here is an alternative place for students to go who we all would, you know, I've heard principals say, if you could just get these 5 out, if you could just get these 5 out, it will make a total difference. Those kids still need love, they still need attention. What we know is where they are, is they have not been getting what they need socially, emotionally. So if we had this kind of setup with 3 staff members, and the way I'm looking at this, I'm gonna say it quick, they're gonna be doing the same type of school that you do in Ram Nation Academy. Okay, that way if I take algebra, I'm taking algebra. If I take geometry, I'm taking geometry. But one of those teachers is an intervention math person because that child probably still doesn't know multiplication tables. They need intervention to catch up to eventually become an 8th grade student. So we have somebody who does pullouts, they're still getting core, right? Everybody understands you have to get your core. So like English, if they're English 9 and they're supposed to be reading West Side Story, they're going to be reading West Side Story, but somebody's going to pull them out to teach them phonetics because they never learned it. Okay, that's the type of intervention I'm talking about there. Then the social emotional piece. We have somebody who can do those groups with them, can work with them on their behaviors. And to show you that I'm not thinking about punitive, these kids in their group would learn to have like a family situation with the people that they come to school with so they can learn how to behave in appropriate settings. So we may take them to those experiences that we talk about. They're going down to the Air Force Museum. And maybe, and I haven't planned this down to the T, but I'm just trying to give you the idea. And maybe they can earn points to come to the pep rally at the high school. Sort of wean them back into a setting with their peers. Another major difference is I would recommend that these kids stay as long as we can legally, you know, pull them out. Maybe a quarter, maybe a semester. I need to investigate that further. But it's not 10 days. You're going to learn nothing in 10 days. Or
For the sake of expediency, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but I would, based on what you're saying, I would really encourage anybody. I would really encourage anyone to come see me and let me share with you my in-family experience at the middle school. I don't think there's anybody here that was here when we did that. And okay. No, I think you're talking about me and Mr. Hitchcock. No, I ain't talking about that. No, before that. Oh, and it was called M Family. It was here, and they had families. And I would detail it in
did you feel like it made a difference?
It did work. And I don't want to take the time. I can give you.
I appreciate it. Okay, I'm still going. All right. Next, I have renovated the back of central office. It doesn't have HVAC, it doesn't have electrical, but HVAC is the most expensive thing it needs. And why would we do that? The example that I have in my mind is, if a lot of you probably worked at DPS, so if you haven't, you've taken kids over there, but at Kaiser Middle School, in the back of it, they have a Challenger Center. People can go in there, and it's like you're in like an astronaut, and it's like a one-day field trip. That's not what we have to do, but it's one of the type of things, like a biomedical lab I have here because we're next to 5 Rivers. So we could have a way where kids get to come here, see what it's like if you want to get into the medical profession, do some interning and visiting over there, and get a sense of what you might want to do. I would like to see that area used for that type of space. Also, you know, if we did need some rooms for adults to have offices, potentially it could be back there. I just think that at this time, since we can, we should renovate that back. and then we would have the opportunity to use it for something that could benefit our kids. Okay, so that's that. I put operations request on hold, wasn't that I was mad at Marlon. I saw his list, but they were things that, once our money went down, we said those are things that would have to happen. Principal request and additional staffing, I put a short-term solution, $500,000, which would be if they wanted to, we decided the best thing to do is to bring back something, to add people, we would fall within that category. Parent engagement, we talked about having someone over parent engagers like we have had before. I understand that it really worked well, so I would like to bring that back, activities money, $100,000, short-term fix. Long-term would be renovate back, long-term would be set up our alternative setting because we have to really work on that. Long-term would be the amount of time that it would take to get the metal detectors. Hopefully it could be short. If we could order them and get them here, that would be great. And then I put $500,000 for experiences, the field trips that we talked about, updating our science classrooms, maybe having a professional kitchen for our culinary pathway if we decide to go that route. Because just having a kitchen and then leaving here and going into a profession, we need a professional one. Film studio. I think it would be so cool, maybe it's here, maybe we have space for it already in high school, we have to look at that. Blogging, all the kids are interested. I'm trying to make opportunity for us, that's why I wanted to get started, because we have to have everything that we decide to do in place, as I keep saying, and people don't want to hear it, but it's just true. Not just talked about, but done by, Janice is saying June of '24, so we have time to prepare, because it's literally September.
So what's short term? You're going through them.
So smoke detectors, short term.
Okay, and then what else?
Cell phone pouches, short term.
Okay.
Evolve Express metal detectors, long term, because I'm not sure how long it would take to get them, but we would go in and get started on it as a short term right away thing. The alternative setting, I said, long term because we need to make the plan.
Okay.
But even long term is short because we ain't got for 2 years, so you gotta get it going. Renovate back the central office, again, long term, we don't know how long it takes to get in products, but we can start it right away. That's a nice thing, we can start all of these things right away. I said long term, if I think it's gonna take a little while to get implemented. Biomedical lab, STEM activities, all those things would determine about when the back is ready to get those going.
Those are long term as well.
And principal request, short term. Parent engager, short term. And then those experiences, short term, and some might be long term if we did indeed decide to do something like a film studio or something. It might take a little longer to get it ready.
So, given that, all of this is $4,835,000, correct?
Now, this is guesstimates. I did call in, I checked on the smoke detectors, the cell phone, that's why I have better numbers. Evolve, I checked on that. The others, we sort of looked at, talked with Ms. Allen, and we sort of said like $100,000 for a staff person, because you gotta pay benefits and all of that, So we averaged, this was as good as we could get, and maybe up a little down.
So currently, we started with 15.7 mil, right? And with where we are right now, we have 6.5 mil, and if you subtract the 4.8 mil, we're gonna be left with 1.3 mil. And I think that, and then I'm just gonna go on, and the operations request is on hold. So we don't know what the operations request will be, correct, Mr. Howard?
Oh, he knows,
I know.
he has a list.
Is it more than $1.3 million?
It's probably the one.
Okay.
So some of it could happen, and some of it could wait. For example, he was like gonna push ahead, like buying buses. But we have them already on a schedule. So if we have the money, could we do it? Yes. But on the other hand, you said you might like to see, an increase in where we put the detectors or add some things there. So it's better to have a cushion, I guess, a little bit of a cushion
with opportunity to do some other things.
Okay.
And what, I'm sorry, Vanessa. Okay, and this is through 24, right? This is 2 years. So when we bring in the positions, if it's just for 2 years, those folks are not gonna be here for 2 years because the general fund can't support these kind of numbers. So how do we, what are we looking at? Because we're looking further down the road. We don't want to bring people in, we got a whole bunch of money and they've left Durham and Durham to come to the land of milk and honey, and then 25 are gone. So we have to repurpose people.
Prioritize, repurpose, look for grants.
Look for grants, but also let's not fool ourselves. Community schools, we lost 169 kids in vouchers. They are pushing that hard and heavy, you know, so we have to look at our student population as well, because that's gonna impact our general fund. So we already know that we can't sustain, you know, X amount of millions of dollars in additional salaries, so we have to be really creative how we do this with 20th century schools. Do we go out for another grant, the 21st century grant, do we do that consistently? I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm looking at you, Tracy, I'm sorry. No, grant.
That one is after, Jill, but she has left, but I gotta talk to
But you know what I'm
them.
saying, I'm just saying, if we put this,
Yeah.
whatever we put in place, yes, we need some things short-term, we need immediate things to happen, I get that, and they should, but when we start messing with people's lives and livelihood, I just wanna make sure we have a plan for that.
Right, and I agree with you, and what I would say though is that putting some of these in place will stop the number of kids that's going to Dayton School of Discovery. I saw the list, it's a long list of kids who are going there. Why are they going there? Because maybe they feel like we don't offer some of these same opportunities here. That's our pathways that we wanted to get in place, so the kids can stay here. They don't feel like they have to go to CTC, or they have to go to the School of Discovery, or go someplace else. So we have to be excited about what we're doing. We tout it, we do it, and then we try to get our kids to come back.
The other part for me is, on the extra money, it is how are we spending it to make up for that student academic loss? So that gap, and all of this is good, but I need to see what that tutoring support is for those students to make that gap up. I mean, we really do have to be intentional about that. So.
I know you had asked, like, I know Mr. Nadir, you're working on getting tutoring going at your building. You have some teachers who said were.
Yeah, we've been doing it.
Okay, so have we been doing tutoring after school with 21st century money though, all year?
So we've had 21st century this year.
21st century has been.
Okay, yeah. Okay. And that's the other thing, we have to, you know, I mentioned it, teacher of the year, employee of the year. There are nominations out there at Southwest. Put in those nominations. Take a minute, aside from your school day, and write a person up. It can be a coworker, it can be whoever. But we really do have to be in, I need to know what the numbers and what the programs are for tutoring and make up the laws. I really do. That's just me, but that's a few for me.
And we have to spend, Janice, how much is it that we have to spend on closing the gap?
We're doing 20% of the.
And we have that already encumbered, is the word to say, and we know we need to do more.
Yeah.
But, so, yeah, but I want you to know that we are.
And I know that
we are doing.
But you know, I want things like Apple coding, the Apple code that all of us have, they offer coding classes. You want to bring students here, say that we have Apple teaching for students, and that's it.
Cybersecurity, that's a huge big thing. You know, when we talk about, you know, closing the gap and what you're saying, Mr. Freeman, you know, this is good, don't get me wrong. I mean, I think this is very creative,
And
and
those
this is very
things can
innovative.
fall within this place.
Well, they have to, because really and truly,
Well, that's what we're
that
saying.
money is investing in kids' lives to make up for loss, okay? So again,
I could not think of everything, but that was the point of having this conversation.
Yeah.
We can do Apple coding.
yeah.
to look into some things, but I like the short-term board. What are your thoughts? Really quick, guys, it's 7:32, so I did want to.
have to fall along the lines of preventing, preparing, or responding to COVID.
Yes.
So we just have to make sure that we're intentional.
The board wants kids to go to kids.
Allow
We want
expenses.
an expanded opportunity for kids, okay? So anything that we do, the only question is, now tell me how this helps close the gap for our kids. And
I'm just saying, the extra money.
Yeah, I'm talking extra money, federal dollars, you know, our general fund, because we're only here because of kids. That's our business, educating kids.
And that's what,
Yeah.
all of
And
this.
safety, because this is the safety thing, but as
Well,
far
that
as.
gets them here.
Yeah, but as far as the things that you have presented, I just want, if we could take just a couple minutes, guys, it's 7:33, but I just wanted to open it up to the board because superintendent is actually asking us, can she move forward? And so we're here at this meeting, we're together, this is a legal meeting, okay? There's no collaboration or anything like that anywhere else but in this space. So the short-term goals that the plans that the superintendent has laid forth, I'm gonna just open it up for the board. Because she needs to know how soon she can move on these things. Everything. You know, HR is gonna wanna post positions if we're gonna do certain things. Is there one or two that you have, you know, blessing on? Is it 4 or 5? What is it? And then until we get more information, like Mr. Peter Freeman said on some of these, when I say until we get more information, we've done this now 2 weeks in a row. So this is not like it's gonna take forever to get information, you know, again, what these things look like.
Yeah, that's what we, if I can get started, then I can even find out the exact costs and all.
So I'll open it up and post it to the board on a short term, and she said smoke detectors, cell phone pouches, the metal detectors. I guess principal requests, parent engagement, and student filters.
Dr. Crosby, I like this proposal. I think all of these things on here, valid. I think all of them really enhance the educational processes here. And I think we should be able to do it. And we should be moving on this now. I think this goes back to safety issues and having fun in school, issues for everybody. And so I'm in favor of all of it.
Yeah. And right now, we're really talking about the short term, you know, because even the long term, with the biochemical lab and all of those things, I think, like you were saying, what does that look like?
And that's what I want to have permission to do, because some of it costs money. I mean, I was told even to figure out all of that, it costs a little bit of money.
Let's research some of the long term, like, can we agree to reconvene in another week, or is that good? Just on those long term, but the short term, that's really what I'm asking for.
For the long term, you could actually meet during a second meeting, right?
Our work session, our regular meeting,
Yeah.
we could,
On the
which will
long term.
be, yeah, we can do that, so the 21st. That's the second meeting, because the 7th is Thursday. Okay, or not the work session, not the 7th, you're talking about the 21st, okay? And then now, yeah, you can have more information on that, okay? Whether it's code, Apple, whether it's cybersecurity, I mean, this is something a little bit more clear. So, if any other board members have any comments before I motion to adjourn?
I'm just a little, I still don't feel real good about metal detectors. That's just me, don't shoot me, okay? But I understand you all are in the building, so I'm just saying, from my perspective, I don't know if it sends a message out there that, you know, we're safe or that we're really so bad. I don't know. Just something to consider.
I encourage you to look that up. If you look it up, they have a video that shows how it works, and you'll see, I mean, unless everybody watching are talking about the fact that, you know, you're walking through the scanner,
you'll realize that you can't even tell. And we do it every day. When you go, a lot of places that you guys are going, you're walking through them, you don't even know you're walking through. So it's,
I think I've been churches.
that's what
I'm just saying, okay?
Right, yeah. So, anybody who has a concern about that, look it up and then see, tell me what you think, but I think you're gonna realize that after the first few days, and that's how they catch people, because they forget.
Dr. Coffey, can you send that information to the board via email, all right? What the system that you're looking at, the evolved and all that?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Any other board comments?
Regulation, alignment, to me, I'm for kids to, I really think, I'm thinking of a child, I'm trying to age out at this point. So I'm just not working out. I think it was an expeditiously great presentation to you.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed it. I really am on board about it. Time will take time. I'm really serious about that. Otherwise, that's kind of it for me.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Any others? One thing that we're gonna have to do, we have a meeting on Thursday. There needs to be legislation on the agenda or a motion for whatever items and expenditures that we're moving forward with. Even though these are estimates, it gives us really, it keeps us legal, it keeps everything clean, we're not just.
And I'll say yes.
And then not only that, but we can't straw poll, but it needs to be on the agenda. What we're gonna do a short-term thing with an estimate cost for review, and then on the 21st for the, okay? But I think you'll get a pretty good idea of where we stand, all right?
Okay, 21st, I thought we were also looking at the long-term thing, so you want me to put everything on the?
Yeah, if you have it ready.
I'll have it.
Okay. No, we're looking at the long term, okay? So on the agenda for the 7th, if you have more information in the long term, please share it with the board, okay? And all of these are gonna be information only until we get to the questions, okay? Okay, that's where we are. And I think, I would like to talk with the treasurer about after the money runs out and where we are, and I also like your input, because, we really gotta look at that. Other than that, I just wanna say thank you to everybody who joined us tonight. I apologize, we went over about 10 minutes. I'm glad that everybody has the information. What really excites me is that we can get started on these things too. I mean, safety can't wait, so we can actually start pulling the pieces together to make these things happen. Other than that, I need a motion to adjourn. Got a motion in the second. Ms. Allen, please call the roll.
Mr. Andrews?
Yes.
Mr. Davis? Mrs. Judy Freeman? Yes. Mrs. Cherry? And Ms. Moore?
One other thing before I say yes and meeting adjourned. So the three things that we identified, can you bring back